What's up, everybody? It's Mover CW Lemoine, and I got an email today from a fan, Patrick. Thank you very much for sending me an article that was from the New York Post about a fighter pilot blacking out at 18,000 feet and waking up to $2.5 million in damage. And it was very interesting to me, so I thought I might read it, react to it, talk about it, and if this is something you like, maybe we'll do more of these. So it's from the New York Post. It's filed under Living, and it says, fighter pilot blacks out at 18,000 feet, wakes up to $2.5 million in damage, posted on Friday. It's got a nice picture of Florida Air Guard F-15 as a stock photo. It starts out, nightmare at 18,000 feet. A military flight exercise in Oregon turned disastrous after a student pilot blacked out during maneuver. Fortunately, he was able to wake up from the Flightmare and guide the plane to safety, but not before causing some serious damage to his aircraft. The harrowing near miss occurred this past March over Oregon, where an unnamed apprentice aviator and his instructor were conducting a two-aircraft mission simulation in separate F-15C jets, reports Popular Science. There's a link to the Popular Science site. The routine drill went sideways after the pilot attempted a tricky turn and passed out due to accelerated gravitational forces. Specifically, the G-forces had caused blood to flow down from the student's head, rapidly inducing unconsciousness. As a result, the plane was left hurtling through the air at approximately 18,000 feet with no one at the controls. Fortunately, the cadet woke up from his impromptu in-flight nap 11 seconds later and safely landed the fighter plane along with his instructor. Neither were injured in the incident, but the F-15 didn't fare as well. The force of the maneuver caused damage to the wings, tail, and fuselage totaling more than $2.5 million. While the fainting flyboy survived the ordeal, the calamitous case does illustrate the perils of operating fighter jets even during training exercises, says Cheryl Lowry, I don't know, whatever. A physician, aerospace medicine expert, and retired Air Force colonel. Despite the good training and good aircraft and good procedures, things still happen, she says, tells Popular Science. And they're happening at an increased rate, talks about GLOC incidents, and this is slightly more than in years past, the Air Force Safety Center says, but the public doesn't always hear about them since nothing truly disastrous happened. Fortunately, the Oregon mishap has prompted the formation of an Air Force Safety Investigation Board report, and the overall safety system has gotten better and more automated, according to this colonel. Despite advancements in 2018 and 2019 saw a global uptick in airplane accidents, reports USA Today. The most infamous incident occurred on October 29, 2018, when a Boeing 737 MAX 8 crashed into the Java Sea, killing all 189 passengers, because those are pretty relevant. Filed under airplanes, drills, fighter jets, and military crashes. Oh my God. So if you actually go to the Popular Science, their website is actually kind of a big surprise, but it actually is right. And basically it talks about, they did a Freedom of Information Act. They were looking at these incidents and they found this GLOC thing. So, I don't know if I'm more annoyed by this because I'm a writer or just because I'm a pilot and I know most of this is BS. Because it's so much, there's so much hyperbole. I mean, nightmare at 18,000 feet. It's like somebody come get their dad. There's too many dad jokes in this, like the apprentice aviator and a tricky turn, and it's a Flightmare, and a fainting flyboy with a calamitous case. I mean, come on, man. All right, so here's what happened. Two F-15s went out. In case you don't know, the way the fighter pipeline works in general is you go from T-6s, T-38s, Intro to Fighter Fundamentals, which is still T-38s. That's where they teach you basic fighter pilot stuff. And then you go to the B course, the basic course. And that's where you learn how to fly whatever MWS, major weapon system, that you end up flying. And then you go to your actual squadron. So Klamath Falls is the F-15 schoolhouse. It's in Oregon. And they do both the B course and TX courses. So I'm not really sure if it's a B course or a TX course. And it really doesn't matter, because regardless of how it works, the pilot involved, the student pilot, which is actually an upgrade pilot, is a winged aviator. He's not an apprentice. He's not a cadet. And I'm not even sure if they know if it's male or female, but it doesn't matter. it's a winged aviator. So you've been through pilot training, you've got your wings, you're already a pilot. And in fact, by the time this happens in the B course, they're actually qualified to fly the aircraft. You get your what's called the Form 8 early in the program, and then you can fly solo. So they're signing for the aircraft, they're the aircraft commander, they're not cadets. Second, let's talk about GLOC, and whether it happened at 18,000 feet or not is really irrelevant. There was someone at the controls the whole time. It's just that he wasn't conscious, and the reason it takes so long. So the way G's works, and I did a video about this, about G forces and stuff like that. When you pull G's, blood pools at your feet. And you have, there's different kinds of G suits. There's just the basic G suit that I used to fly with. There's the A tags and the F tags. So the full coverage anti-G suit and the advanced, I don't know what AT, advanced anti-G suit? I don't know. But it's an advanced anti-G suit. It gives you up to between 4 and 6 G's of protection. What happens here is a student or somebody, just in general, this can happen to anybody. They're tired, or they're just not on their G strain, or the onset rate happens too fast, and they don't G strain quickly enough or well enough, and you lose blood flow to your brain, you start graying out, and then you black out, and then you lose consciousness. This is a very serious subject. I lost a very good friend of mine in the F-15B course before A-tags and F-tags and all that came out, and the auto G-cast. Before all that came out, I lost a very good friend who G-locked, and he was unable to recover the aircraft at altitude. It is good that they were able to recover this aircraft. I am very thankful for that. And the fact that there's $2.5 million in damage, who cares? Honestly, the only reason this is even a safety investigation board is because of the damage. So the way it works in the military is you have Class C, Class A, Class C, Class B, Class A mishaps, and that is determined by whether it's how much the monetary value of the damage is, or whether there's loss of life. So Class A, it met the threshold, and it's over $2.5 million. That's why there's a safety investigation board. It is not that, whether the airplane flies or not is irrelevant, because to me, what's important is he survived. He survived. He lives to fight another day. He probably already graduated the B course or the F-15TX course with additional training, obviously, but got through it, and now it's no big deal. What probably happened, and it's tough to speculate, but in something like this, usually what happens is they get into some nose-low attitude where, high rate of speed, because they're obviously unconscious. So usually they're in burner from whatever they did, unconscious, pointed at the ground, wake up, oh shit reaction is to reef back on the stick, and the Eagle doesn't have the G protections that the F-16 or F-18 might, and when you go a full aft stick at whatever speed he was going, you're probably talking 10, 11, maybe even 12 Gs. That's enough to bend the aircraft is significant. So it's not, I don't know why this is newsworthy. This is sensational bull, really. Honestly, if you go read the Popular Science thing, basically the premise of their article is much more reasonable. It just basically says a pilot passed out while flying an F-15 over Oregon. Here's what happened next. A fighter jet doesn't need to crash to suffer millions of dollars in damage. So you go from waking up to $2.5 million in damage to it doesn't need to crash to suffer millions of dollars in damage. And the Popular Science magazine is obviously very realistic, but this goes to show you what the media has. It's like a dog watching TV. They don't even know what they're looking at. They just write sensational titles and come up with things, some alliterations, if you will, and then start calling people cadets and stupid stuff like that when none of this is true. It was a rated aviator that was doing not a tricky maneuver. It was just dogfighting, doing basic fighter maneuvers, and wasn't on his G strain, and it happens, and he'll get more training. They might probably, more than likely, they send him back to the centrifuge for more training on that, which sucks, but it is what it is. If it saves his life, it's worth it. But beyond that, it sucks, but it's not that big a deal. So hope that answers that question. It is funny. It is definitely a interesting article. So tell me what you think. One, do you want me to keep doing stuff like this? And two, what do you think about the, I know the New York Post is probably not the most, I know there's a lot of fake news out there, but you can't expect them to know everything. I do expect them to do a little bit of research and not just copy and paste from another article and then make it worse. Just me. Maybe I've got too high standards. Anyway, hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Excuse me. Oh, no. Oh!
About a lot of that.
Why is that an Air Force guy? Usually fly with the doors off. All Fox speed. Don't be a douche. That's rule number one. Make them tell you no.